to know how the pitch meeting for this went and how what your initial thoughts were for this script.
The pitch was it was like two parts, kind of. It was an internal idea of my producing partner, Josh Waller. He had this idea where he was like, what if there was a movie where there's a zombie virus, but it only affects kids who haven't gone through puberty, and it's called Cooties. We're like, wait, that's so brilliant. And the idea ultimately got pitched to Lee Winnell, who we love from Saw and Insidious, and he freaked out for it. And our concept was to make a really serious horror film that took itself very seriously, which I think is insane now that we were thinking that. I think we were fresh on the heels of having seen Who Can Kill a Child, which is a really great Spanish horror film. And so we were like, yeah, it'll be really serious. And then we had this meeting with Lee where he was like, guys, it's a comedy. It's called Cooties. We're like, oh, right. And so that was basically, he kind of sold us on his version of the film, and the fact that he wanted it kind of steeped in kind of like almost Office-style humor, a kind of subtle, dry humor, and that he wanted to write it with his writing partner and friend, Ian Brennan, who created Glee. And we were just thrilled at like the way that they saw it, and we kind of just let them go and create it.
There's such an incredible balance of dark humor and the grotesque in this film. How did you keep that balance on set and still manage to have fun and do all the improv and everything?
Balance on set?
No, I mean, there is something... trying to find the tone was... I remember the first few days of trying to find where it sits in terms of the reality of the situation. Where you're like, don't be as big, you're bigger than you think. Like, I think there was sort of some bigness in the beginning in terms of reactions or fright looks. But by the end, I mean, there really is, when you're looking at so much grotesquerie around, there is the gross out factor and the fear, and then on top of it, it's just automatically funny. Like, intestines are funny. They're just a funny thing.
They are.
I don't think you can argue with them. It's horrifying, but...
Yeah. Vomit's funny.
Vomit's fun. There's so many things like that where you're like, come on.
That's a really good point, though. It felt like the first 2 days, because we were lucky enough to shoot almost entirely in sequence. So the first 2 days were really establishing each of the characters, and it's the introduction of the film. So everyone's meeting each other, or I'm meeting all of them. And yeah, it was kind of like figuring out like our sea legs as to who these characters are and where the sort of range of comedy exists. And ultimately, I think the approach was just to serve who these people are in a real way, and they're already written kind of ridiculously in a funny way, so it was just kind of serving who they were.
You know, for as much as you've got the grotesque side with the gore and everything else, the one thing that creeped me out was the beginning process of the chicken.
Oh, it's gnarly.
Yeah. Was there ever any talk about possibly pissing off certain processed chicken nugget
no way.
factories?
No way, not at all was that a consideration. I think
it's horrifying. It's a horrifying process, and that's in a relatively nice chicken processing like facility. Like the way that chickens are introduced, the live ones, that's like a pretty nice facility versus the industrial cages that, I mean, the horror film would just be shooting in a chicken, like an actual factory farm. And so to start the movie off that way where you're like, is great. Like there is the basis in reality of the sickening food we feed our kids, the drugs that they are on, the schools themselves as places of horror. There's like actual basis of all of these horrifying things in reality, which, you know, hopefully makes people think about it.
Yeah, no kidding.